There's been far too much discussion this week about thresholds and whether they should stay or go from Sorare. Unfortunately, I do need to add to that because there's just been so much nonsense being said. But I know some of you just want some quick answers, so here they are. Do I think the threshold will be removed? No, I don't. Do we need a massive change of the thresholds, like scrapping it completely or removing it from certain thresholds? No, we don't. Are there some absolutely horrific takes on this subject? Absolutely. Am I going to be one of the horrific takes? Maybe, that's up for you to decide, but let's get into it. And let's straight away get to the core of the issue. Because 12 months ago, everyone was rejoicing at that fact that thresholds were being added to every single scarcity. It gave everyone equal opportunity, and they were finally balanced between each scarcity. And to be honest, all that really happened was prices declined, and that had these knock-on effects. What are the knock-on effects? Well, if prices decline, the tier 4s and 5s are less valuable than the thresholds, and sometimes even the tier 3s. But what that means is that rather than playing and if you miss the top prizes getting a tier 3, 4, 5, it's probably statistically better to play the easier competition of cap 240 and consistently, or more consistently I should say, pick up these $50 every week in rare of course, or $5 in limited. And not just the lower end cards have been affected, because the more that the top prize, like a Haaland or a Bellingham, when they're 50 to 1 threshold, so it's like 50 thresholds would make up 1 Haaland, you could think, okay, well I prefer my chances to try and get that 1 Haaland, I'll win 1 in 50 or whatever it is. But when they get closer to 1 in 20, and there's 1,000 people playing or 10,000 people playing depending on your scarcity, it soon becomes that cap 240 is the way to go. Especially because even if you do smash the lights out, you can still win one of those top end prizes. In its simplest form, the prize pool of say under 23 continues to decline every week, whereas the threshold is relatively stable because that $50 each week is absolutely fixed. So in short, cap 240 for the majority of users, those that aren't, mega whales that can consistently hit stars and tier 1s and tier 2s every week, they're shifting to cap 240. And those mega whales that do have these mega galleries are annoyed because their star cards are now worth less and less and less, and they're not seeing any benefit of the cap 240 because as well as, falling prices, as that happens more and more people get concerned about the liquidity or the solvency of Sorare itself. So they're taking thresholds out just to be safe. So if something did go wrong, well, at least I've got X amount of money out or something along those lines. Everyone's obviously independent in when they take money out or how they take money out. But I do think there is this over bias to the point where it's like those whales or just a lot of people on the platform in general think that all of the thresholds are just being, taken out of the platform immediately. Now, unfortunately, we don't have any stats to back it up, but there will be some reinvestment and probably a large amount of reinvestment into cards. But the next problem is, where do you go? The only place you could go if you're playing the cap 240 is to save up loads and go to the next scarcity cap 240. And that doesn't really help anyone because the thresholds by nature are almost unsustainable. You need to manually adjust them to make them sustainable. So I'll talk about some of the adjustments that people have discussed. There has been scrapping thresholds completely because their money could be better allocated to higher competitions. Now, I think that's a very whale perspective to the point that it's like, okay, well, if only the top cards are valuable, what happens to the majority of every card that everyone else wins? It becomes pretty pointless. And then the second take I've heard, and is a far better one, but still not the answer, is rather than paying out cash, we pay out essentially a credit. A credit so you can use either on the primary or secondary market. Regardless of whether the primary and secondary market could be used, it's a credit that you can use against Sorare cards. Now overall, it's a positive step, but I almost think it should be a last resort to the point where if we're putting real money into the platform where we can go out and buy this team and try and beat Sorare in their own, beat the game. That's what the cap 240 was designed for. It's how it was marketed. If you aren't beating the game, then you should be rewarded in the same light that everyone else is being, beating the game by beating other people. They're being rewarded with rewards that they could take out of the system. And to those that do think the credit is the right answer immediately now, as I said, I think it's a last resort. How would you feel if that credit was extended to every single division? If now Champion Europe, the winnings were only credits? You get to the point where cards can only win cards, can only win cards, can only win cards, which maybe now and again you can win a signed shirt for, but really, it's just a whole load of just nothingness, really. So that's why I want the credit to be the last option. And I don't think we're at the stage of the last option. I really think the solution is really simple. The effect that has caused this is prices going down by 20 or 30%. And what that does is the factors I've discussed earlier, but it also makes Cap 240 easier because for the same amount of money, you can get more cards. More cards gives you better options of fixtures, better point scorers, and then essentially the competition gets easier. Whereas vice versa for every other competition, for Champion Europe or Under 23, the lower prices get, the more competitive that division gets, because people can pick up more cards for different prices, and you honestly need to keep spending to try and stay, relatively competitive in that division. So all of these factors considered, the solution is just to make Cap 240 less attractive. You don't need to completely scrap it, because those that say completely scrap it, I do understand, and I would agree that the money could probably be used in better divisions and in better allocations. But what about the majority of users that have paid to build a Cap 240 team, that have gone through all of their research, got all of these mid-range players? You delete that and their whole gallery is just valueless. It's so unfair when Sorare have promised that these thresholds are here and they will stay. The only thing they haven't promised is the 280 score that is variable. So now is the perfect time to make Cap 240 harder to hit, because it's got easier, more people are playing it, so the payouts are more, and all of that money you're saving, you can then allocate that to the higher divisions to get those star prizes, more valuable again, so people try to progress out of 240, because that's the other problem. Once you're winning in 240, the investment required to then go and compete at the top of a challenger or an under 23 division, it's so vastly higher that no one's gonna take that risk, or very, very few will take that risk. Sorare's ability to change the 280 score where you win your $50 to any other score is what gives me so much confidence that the thresholds aren't being removed. I don't even know why the discussion of thresholds being removed has been brought up, because Sorare haven't mentioned it. And surely, if you were going to remove them, you would at least first try and make them more difficult to cut back on your savings before just pulling the rug and saying that was a mistake. And especially just a year after they extended them, when not many people were expecting to extend them. A company of Sorare's sizes would have done cash flow forecasts where they can forecast exactly where they'd run out. And no reasonable company or no reasonable accountant would look and say, yeah, 1 year, it could be all over. It's just not how it works for me. Now, I know nothing, just my opinion, but in the idea of just removing them, you would just cut them in half at minimum. Anyway. So we don't need this huge overchange of thresholds. What we need is just to make the scores slightly higher, so Sorare save a little bit of money, but users aren't really that disadvantaged because the prices have come down. And even better would be making the stars even more valuable, and I've discussed it in one way, but we also have to think what Nicholas was hinting at in his last tweet, where stars become stars again. So whatever that means, they're intending to make the top prizes, that jackpot factor, the jackpot factor again. Now, let's be honest, you'll never go back to 2020, 2022, 2021 prices. That's just a fact. But they can still be a lot more valuable than they are today, and that would be a huge benefit. So did I make this whole video to say stop panicking, they just need to make the threshold slightly harder? Yeah, pretty much, because why are we trying to change the game when everyone loved the threshold, it solved its purpose, it's just got a little bit too easy where people are trying to milk it. Like, that's essentially it. The only other thing that I will say, and I need to give a caveat here, let's just remove the rewards from 240, because it should be this balance where 240 is easy enough, where you can get consistent prizes, but you're never going to get that mega jackpot. And what will make people go to the mega jackpot is, of course, the mega jackpot. But why I need to caveat that is because I thought I read somewhere that the Cap 240 rewards were being removed. Maybe they were just made less for the boxes that are being opened. My shortest of short rundowns is that Cap 240 has become too much of a premium division when it's not a premium division. It's to progress you through the divisions, but people are getting stuck there. So we should make it harder, which is one way to force them out. We should make the jackpot better, which is a way to encourage them out. And there should be a strategic choice about whether you're going to 240 and trying to play consistently, or whether you're going to go to Champ, Under 23 Challenger and go for, the jackpot. I really think it's not that hard to solve. That's why I don't think Sorare are making a statement on it. That's why I just think soon they're going to make it harder. Soon they'll make stars again, as I've already said. maybe remove some more rewards from 240. They don't all have to go, because if you do win the division, I get that, but just less. It should be, the thresholds are what you're playing for. You win them, successful. You want to get to 280, not to 480. That's my thoughts. Let me know if I'm right or wrong. All the best to you. Cheers.